The biggest names in sports are all on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Tommy Smyth, this is Ari Lewis, co-host with Raphael. You're live on Lewis Live and IsraelSportsRadio.com. Thank you for being on. How you doing out there?
I'm pretty good, thank you. Enjoying a nice, comfortable temperature day.
Hi, Tommy. You're on right now with Raphael. I wanted to thank you so much for coming on. There's so much great stuff to get to. Of course, we got to talk about the match last night. Such an amazing match. Bayern Munich moving on, Real Madrid not being able to make their penalty kicks. Tell me, was it weird for you to see guys getting paid so much money, Kaká and, of course, Cristiano Ronaldo, missing those penalties? Just give us some thoughts of the game. Of course, you broadcasted it, so what was it like getting the opportunity to call such an amazing game?
Yeah, it was an incredible game. I mean, and unfortunately, sometimes football games have to end up with penalty shootouts. I mean, I don't think that there's a more pressurized situation in any sport than having to step up there and take a penalty kick in that kind of a situation. And during the game, I was kind of surprised that Real Madrid didn't push on. I mean, they came out and they ran Bayern Munich off the field for the first 15 minutes, scored 2 goals. And obviously, if they had gotten the third one and came very close to it, Benzema had a shot which I thought was going to bend in. Had that gone in 3-0, we'd be talking about a different scoreline. But that's what makes football the game that it is. We just are never sure. And I think one of the things that really stood out with me was Robin. I mean,
Right.
Robin supposedly had a fist fight with Ribéry. He had a black eye. Everything had gone on. But yet now, when it came time for the penalty kick, you heard Robin. Our microphones picked Robin up saying, I am going to take it. Give me the ball.
Right.
He put it down and he beat Casillas. And that just shows you the character of a man and the character of a team.
Right, and Casillas, I mean, I love this guy. I've been following him since I believe 99 was his first year, something around that. He's still a youngish guy. I mean, he was called up to Real, I think, at age 18, maybe even 17. I don't remember right now. Tommy, let me tell you, I've had a blast watching the Premier League this year. I really don't understand the argument with the La Liga is better than, or excuse me, yeah, La Liga is better than the Premier League. I don't get that. I mean, the team that's in third place in La Liga is 20 points off Real and Barca. I mean, the Premier League, you know, West Bromwich is beating Chelsea this year. Everton has had some big matches. I mean, this league, Tottenham was doing so well at the start of the year. Now they're falling off. But this league is, I mean, even Wigan and Bolton, yeah, they're in relegation, but they're still very capable teams. I love on Saturday here, it's in the Sabbath here on Shabbat, just turning on the match here at 4 p.m., 6 p.m., and watching myself some great Premier League. I want to ask you, what do you think has been going on with Chelsea? They stomped the Spurs 5-1 a couple weeks ago in the semifinals. Now they're in the Champions League. They sacked their manager earlier in the year. Suddenly, they're on a roll. They're playing great. Roberto Di Matteo has done an amazing job there as an interim coach. What do you think's going on in Stamford Bridge?
You know, it's one of those things that really a perplexing question why they are so inconsistent. I mean, one week they show up and play an unbelievable game, the next week they show up and they don't have it. But I think you've made the case for the Premier League yourself, and I think that's one of the reasons, because the competition is so intense in the Premier League that you just can't take anything for granted. And I think if anything, Real Madrid and Barcelona got caught out a little this time, because really in La Liga they never have to defend. We never see how good or how bad their defenses are, because in my opinion the other teams are so much weaker than they are. Where in the Premier League you can get caught out. Look at Manchester United last weekend, if you want an example of it.
Right.
4-2, 10 minutes to go against Everton, and Everton scores 2 goals on them, and
Last
Manchester
8
United
minutes.
get caught.
Absolutely.
So, it speaks for itself, I think.
For those fans just joining us, we are speaking with ESPN's Tommy Smyth. And Tommy, I want to ask you, how much are you looking forward to the Manchester Derby this weekend?
Well, this is obviously the biggest derby that I have ever seen. I mean, and I'm fairly old, and I've seen a lot of them. I think this one eclipses everything. Fergie's playing it very cautiously. He's saying, okay, I don't have any injuries, no new injuries to report anyhow. The team is in good shape. And his point that he's making is that, there can be 2 results for Manchester United in this game. They can get a draw or they can get a win and still be in good shape. where all the pressure is on Mancini. He has to get a win. Anything but a win, I think, and his goose is cooked. Mancini has been playing it very low-key, saying, oh, United are still in control. I'm not sure that's the best way to go about a game like this. I'm not sure it is. But certainly, the atmosphere will be red-hot electric. Any of you who have ever been to a derby in any city, let it be Celtic Rangers, let it be River Plate in Argentina, any of these derby matches are very special. But this one basically has the championship written on it. Whoever wins this one, in my opinion, is going to be crowned champion of England. And I have never anticipated one that I wanted to see like this one.
Right, it's going to be great. The next thing I want to ask you, you are based in America, so let's give a shout-out to Clint Dempsey. Clint Dempsey, who's having a monster season with Fulham, 16 goals. That's great. The longest time in America was Landon Donovan. Of course, Landon Donovan's been to Everton on a couple loans, but he's never really stayed with the team. He's an MLS guy. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's true. But Clint Dempsey's had a great year. He's really helped show that Americans are getting better, getting more exposure. Can you talk a little bit more for our listeners in America who are listening right now about what Clint Dempsey has been able to do to this Fulham team and just for American soccer in general?
Yeah, well, I worked closely with Steve Nicol. Steve Nicol and myself are on press pass many times.
Right.
Of course, Steve Nicol was the coach of Dempsey when Dempsey was with the Revolution, and that's really where he came to the fore before he went to England. And, he tells me that, he has never met a more dedicated player than Clint Dempsey. Clint Dempsey is dedicated 100% to his game. And he said what is even more important is he has a bulldog attitude. He's never beaten. Clint Dempsey doesn't see himself in the situation where he can't get the ball, and then when he can get the ball, that he can do something about it. I mean, I think he's been a fantastic ambassador for the United States. I'm not sure why he doesn't really get the plaudits that he deserves. I think he deserves an awful lot more. I mean, I happen to think he's a fantastic player, and I would not be surprised at all to see him leave Fulham now and go someplace else. I think he might be with Arsenal next year.
Wow, with Arsenal, that'd be great for America. And speaking of the Gunners, wow, they've really turned things around the last couple months too. Of course, we're in Israel, Tommy, so we're huge. I'm even wearing my Benayoun jersey right now, my national Benayoun jersey. Tell me, I think that when Benayoun plays with any team, he just makes the team better, and it's not necessarily the goals that he scores. It's just he's such a smart player, has such a great IQ. He's played now Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, I believe West Ham back in the days. I mean, he's a superstar in Israel. I got to ask you about Yossi Benayoun just because you're on Israel Sports Radio. So what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I think he's a very, very intelligent player. I mean, you don't have to be a fantastic goal scorer to be a great player. And Benayoun is one of those players that, unfortunately, sit down to write the story of what happened in the game. Sometimes he's the man that's forgotten. I mean, the contribution that he will make, the position that he takes up on the field, and he snuffs out a lot of fires before the fire even gets started. And then he's a kind of the match that will light the fire on opposite. Because I think one of the great things that Benayoun has going, and I've noticed amongst a lot of players in your part of the world, who I consider your national team to be one of the unluckiest teams over the last 20 years.
Absolutely.
In international football. But Benayoun has that kind of a mentality. I'm not sure where it comes from, whether it's maybe an academy that you guys have there or something like that. But he has that intelligence that he knows how to play the game. Doesn't really ever going to be the big star, but he does get the job done.
Right, and I believe a lot of fans, or especially people in the media in England, really appreciate him. But as you touched on a second ago, we really have our national teams really, in the last 8 years, all I can say is one word is Greece. Greece has ruined our lives in the World Cup qualifying, in the Euro qualifying. Every single time we get really close to making it to a tournament, they just come into Israel and just beat us, and then we go there and lose. It's very frustrating. I'm a huge Israeli national fan from birth, and we have really great players, as I'm sure you know, across Europe right now. It's not like our players just in Israel. We have Ben Sahar, who's a really young guy, Itai Shechter, who's playing in Germany, Tomer Hemed, who's playing in Spain. I mean, we have guys everywhere. And it's just kind of sad. You got to feel bad for Benayoun because he's been on the team almost, I think, 12 years now, and he hasn't been able to participate in a big tournament. And this was kind of his last chance, the Euro this summer. So that's kind of funny to hear you say that we've been the most unlucky team, national team in the world. So thank you. I'm going to take that as a compliment, Tommy. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I seem to remember Israel going through a whole campaign there where they really didn't lose. I mean, they had so many draws that if they had gotten another couple of victories out of those draws, and very, very unlucky not to get victories. And, I come from a small country too, and I come from a country that finds it very hard to qualify for campaigns, for World Cups. We're lucky enough, Ireland's lucky enough to be in the Euros this time.
Right.
We're lucky enough to qualify. So I realize, I mean, it is countries, it's easy for Brazil, and it's easy for England, and it's easy for Spain and Germany to keep the international game alive. But it's countries like Israel and Ireland and San Marino and countries like that who really have never going to win anything that keeps the international game what it is, because we are interested in participating where the other teams are interested in winning, where we would love to win. I know you would love to win, we would love to win, but we know that the reality of the situation is we're not going to win. But without us, there would be no international football, and sometimes the international community doesn't seem to remember that.
You know what? That's a great point. I haven't thought of it that way. I mean, those teams that do qualify do have to play us, and we give them battles. I mean, it's not like they dominate us. That's something I love about football, is that it's always a battle. I mean, you watch I'm sure you're in America, so you've been watching NBA and all that in football. I mean, those games or matches, it sometimes is over by halftime. In football, the teams never give up. Even let's say, for example, last night Madrid was up 2-0 by the 12th minute. You could have said, okay, it's over. Byron's never going to come back. But they did. I mean, they did. And now they're advancing, and Real's not. So that's what I love about football. The next thing I want to talk to you about is going back to the Premier League. Talk about some teams that have really, really struggled. And we're talking about powerhouse teams, big teams. That is the Spurs and Liverpool. More so Liverpool, because Liverpool has really struggled all year. What do you think? Let's start with Liverpool. What's going on there? I think they're in 7th place right now. No European competition for them. What are the people in Liverpool thinking? I mean, Everton had just a successful year, pretty close to it.
Yeah, I go back and I always say, and you know me, I'm outspoken. I say what I think.
Right.
I think the worst thing that happened to Liverpool was, and you talk about teams not quitting, was in the Champions League final when Benitez was managing them. They came back from 3-0 down to win a Champions League, and Liverpool kind of felt at that stage, well, everything was fine, but it really wasn't. I mean, everything wasn't fine. The cracks were already starting to show at that stage. If you're down 3-0 to an AC Milan team at halftime, hey, things are not going well. Okay, you come back and you win it. But things went from bad to worse with Liverpool, and nobody really said, this is our problem, we need to check this. And then, of course, they took in Dalglish, and Dalglish is the king as far as Liverpool are concerned, and couldn't do anything wrong. But in my opinion, that was a big mistake, because there are a lot of issues at Liverpool that needed to be addressed. And he wasn't going to do it because he is a Liverpool old boy. And I am a little bit surprised that the Americans stood by. John Henry, a man who owns the Boston Red Sox here in the United States, has stood by and let Dalglish do what he's done. I mean, okay, people are telling me, well, if Liverpool win the FA Cup, that's a kind of saying, well, it's been a pretty successful season. But, I think this is just spin. I mean, Liverpool have so many problems. Starting, the first thing is they're too dependent on Stevie G. Stevie G was a fantastic player, but Liverpool came so dependent on him that it was almost like he was Liverpool. And then when the wheels started to fall off the wagon, I mean, he just couldn't get things going again. I think Liverpool have huge, huge problems. They're going to have to clean house, and maybe even clean house in terms of the manager. Okay, they're telling me, Steve Nichols tells me, now you got to give him another year. I'm not sure that I'd give him another year. A lot of this is his fault.
Right, and of course the huge controversy I know in Britain, it was all over the tabloids and the media with Suarez being suspended, and of course that also happened in Chelsea with John Terry. But okay, great stuff there. Moving on now to Tottenham, there's of course, as you know, Tottenham, the Yids. A lot of Jews are big fans of Tottenham. We have a lot of listeners in Israel that are Spurs fans. I sometimes watch this. There's a group of people that watch the Spurs matches every week. Wow, it's a tough time to be a fan of the Spurs. They are having such an amazing season, and suddenly it's just collapsed. And Newcastle is in 4th place, which is really amazing. But what do you think's been wrong? I mean, I think Tottenham went through a streak of 3 or 4 months where they were unbeaten, and suddenly they just can't seem to get points. So what's going on with the Spurs?
Yeah, this was a team that at one point I said on Press Pass that I thought that Spurs had a chance that they might be fit to give United and City a bit of a run for the money in terms of being champions. And then this whole thing came out about Harry Redknapp being the lead man as far as the England job.
Right.
Everybody wanted Harry. And all of a sudden, and guys are telling me, no, you're crazy. It had something to do with it. I know the Spurs had a few injuries after. I know that, and Gareth Bale hasn't played like he played earlier. For whatever reason, he's gone off,
Right.
So I think Harry Redknapp has to take some of the blame here. And not because he should be manager of England or shouldn't be manager of England, but I think he should have handled that whole situation in a different way, not got himself involved at all. And, I mean, Spurs just, I suppose if you look at it realistically, what they were doing was they were performing above their level. They were above their head. And then when they came back down to play the type of football the Spurs should be playing, I mean, even Modric is not playing like he played earlier. So I think maybe it's the long season and it just finally caught up with Spurs. And this is probably the level that Spurs should be at. Where they were earlier was a level above them, and now they're back down to earth.
Right, and Tom, we only have 2 minutes left. I wish we had more time because there's so much I could talk about with you, and this has been great. But real quick, I know this is a tough thing to do, but real quick, the Euros coming up this summer as well as the Olympics. You can't have a segment without talking about David Beckham. So there's some rumors that he might make that Olympic team. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think he should just give up already and stop worrying about being on the national team, or what are your thoughts on all that?
Well, I know David reasonably well, and the one thing about him was he's a competitor. He's never going to give up that thought. He wants to play on the Olympic team, and I think he should play on the Olympic team.
Okay.
I mean, I feel just from an advantage of being a leader, he should be fit to play on this Olympic team. And, at the end of the day, it'll be a nice award for him, and if they win it, they win it. If they don't, whoever wonders about Olympic football anyhow.
Right, and real quick, I know it's early, or it's not really that early. The tournament starts, of course, in about 5-6 weeks. Can you give us your favorite, or who you think is going to win the Euro 2012 championship?
Well, I had them favourites for the last Euros, Germany. I had them favourites for the World Cup. I think that Germany will finally come good this time. It's the 3rd time lucky, and I think that Germany will come good this time.
Okay, great. Last thing I want to ask you about, I had the opportunity to live in Senegal for 1 year, and ever since then I've been really kind of watching African football, Senegal, Cameroon, Ghana. What do you think happened to Senegal in the CONCACAF? I mean, they were horrible. I watched every match, and they lost to Equatorial Guinea. They lost. What happened there? What exactly? There's so much talent. I mean, a lot of their players play in France, England. Everywhere, and I know people in Senegal. My father works there all the time. Where people were devastated that they couldn't even get out of the first round.
Yeah, I think a lot of the problems in African football in general is not the football on the field. It's all of the things that goes on around the outside of the game. I mean, there's no doubt Senegal have fallen off the map in terms of the talent they have. They should have done better. But I think it's the organising of everything that goes on along it. You've seen Nigeria, the same thing. A lot of talent can't really produce on the field. I think the best team in Africa right now is Ghana. But Senegal, certainly, I think the problems are, in most cases, off the field rather than being on the field, and the kind of conditions where they play. And there's a lot of things that has to be done to improve African football, and it should be done because there are so many talented players coming out of Africa. The world could be an awful lot better place with these players.
All right, great stuff, Tommy. We would love to talk to you more, but we're up against it at the end of the program. Thank you so much for being on Lewis Live and Israel Sports Radio, and I'll tell you what, this is so great. We would love to do it again in the future. What do you say?
Oh, I would love to be on with you guys. Really, I would love to be on with you. You know, there's a feeling out there somewhere along the way that maybe Ireland might be the lost tribe. Who knows? Tommy Smyth, ESPN. And that Smith is with a Y if you want to contact me on Twitter.
Absolutely. Great stuff, Tommy. Be well. Enjoy this weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
In my own language, Goramila Mayagat, Slán agus Banach.
Okay. Great stuff. Thank you, Tommy. Be well.
Bye.